You were really fond of that cat, weren't you? Chicago said, putting her arm around his shoulders, to which Satoru murmured back. He was family. And why had he been first to give him away? When Suki asked him early, her, he had not responded. If the cat had regarded it as part of the family, it was even more puzzling. If this was his strict griffin grief-stricken at the news, he probably should have given the cat away in the first place. Though Suki, somewhat uncharitably, perhaps he was a bit jealous of the other two and shared their love of cats. He was the cat when we got back, when my parents were still alive, Satoru said, which put Suki in his place. God was punishing him, he figured, for having entertained a nasty thought about his poor friend. And you hope to be in time to see him. Chicago's kind were so full of warmth. Why am I such a low, mean person, when all I want is to be the kind of man Chico wouldn't be ashamed of, thought Suki. He hadn't realized that Satoru's parents were dead. Even if I had known, I would never have been sympathetic as Chicago. What are you gonna do about the job? Will you carry on? Asked Suki. Besides, Chicago gave him a really now type of look. There's no point in going to Kokura now. Satoru gave his faint smile. Chicago interrupted him. You really should go. Save up your money and go there to say goodbye. Satoru blinked in surprise. You have to mourn for your cat properly, or you won't get over it. Don't just sit here fretting about being it till late. Go there and mourn him. Tell him you're sorry you didn't make it in time. Tell you wanted to see him. Suki knew very well how deeply those words resonated within Satoru, because even he, who thought those mean things, was starting to tear up. Satoru smiled and decided to get back to work. Towards the end of summer holidays, Satoru set off on his trip. When he came back, he looked like he had put the past to rest. He looked back he brought back some souvenirs for Suki and Chikako. For Suki, a Hakata ramen he had asked for, and for Chikako, for some reason, he brought back some blotting paper and a hand mirror he had bought in Kyoto. Wow, this is Yojiya! Apparently, it was some famous cosmetic brand, and Chikako was ecstatic, and a friend of hers called her over and gave her a hurried thank you and rushed off. So, you stopped in Kyoto too? Suki asked, and Satoru nodded. I was on an elementary school trip to Kyoto when my parents were killed in a car accident. My mother asked me to buy Yujiya blotting paper as a present for her. I looked all over but never managed to find it myself. A friend later managed to find some and bought it for me, but I never bought it myself. What of the hand mirror? I just thought that I'd like to buy that for Chikako. It hurts all to hear this. Chikako should be the one to hear this, but Suki didn't want her to. He'd begin to wish it had been somebody else who had run into Satoru the day they were rescued the Shih Tzu. He didn't tell Chikako what Satoru had told him in Kyoto. He expressed his guilty conscience by convincing himself that if Satoru really wanted to know, he'd tell him himself. He now was constantly worried about he was losing his advantage to being Chikako's childhood friend. She was always calling Satoru by his last name, Miyawaki, while she always called Sugi Shuchang. Sometimes passed when he saw any significance in this. If Chikako had known Satoru's feelings, she would, no doubt, have been drawn to him. Unlike himself, shamefully struggling to be the kind of man Chikako would be proud of, Satoru was already there, and that was a terrible experience when he had been through as a child. In spite of losing his parents so young, having his precious cat taken away from him, and now not being in time to see it again, Satoru blames no one for his troubles, and he didn't see any of it as unfair. If it were him, Suki would give himself over the tragedy to make it work in his favor. He would have all sort of lazy excuses, even to exploit it to attract Chikako's affections. How could Satoru be so relaxed and natural? The more Suki got to know him, the more he felt driven into a corner. Satoru was a rival he would never be able to beat. He started to feel the lesser man despite his privileged upbringing. Though he had been more thankful for than Satoru, he began to feel dissatisfied with life. He started arguing with his parents over nothing, saying malicious things, sometimes reducing his mother to tears. I have everything I need in life. I am such a mean, small person. Why can't I be kinder than Satoru, who has so much less? Chikako, too, had been brought up like Suki, never lacking a thing, yet she never felt like this when she was with Satoru. She seemed to naturally enjoy being with him, and this made Suki feel even more concerned. If things went on like this, he knew he was going to lose Chikako, and he had loved her for so much longer. I wonder if Satoru has a special girl he likes. These worlds spilled out from Chikako one day when Satoru wasn't with them. It was the final blow. Suki felt crushed. Later, Suki filmed saying, I always loved Chikako ever since we were kids. This confession was directed not at Chikako but at Satoru. Suki had expected that when Satoru heard this, he would put a lid on any feelings he might have for Chako. He deliberately confessed for his things to Satoru while pretending to seek advice. Satoru opened his wide in surprise after a moment's silence. He smiled. I get it. You do get it, right? You, of all people, should definitely get it. Thus, Suki neatly stopped Satoru from declaring his feelings to Chikako, and in the end, Satoru stepped aside without ever saying a word about them. In the spring in their last years in high school, Satoru changed schools. His aunt, who was his guardian, often moved around with work. Suki truly sad that his friend was leaving, but all the same felt a rush of relief, and at that time he felt things will now be okay. How can you be such a good person when you've been so unlucky? Suki was grumbling away when he realized he was doing. It was the wine they'd opened at dinner. He thought it had been a good opportunity to treat Satoru to some local wine, so he opened some Acheron Red. This variety had a sweet fragrance and taste. If you didn't watch yourself, it was easy to overdo it. Chikako was out of the room having a bath, her absence another reason Sakugi had let down his guard. Satoru had smiled dryly. I don't know if I'm a good person or not. Either way, I wasn't unlucky. What are you talking about? Are you denying that life's treated you unfairly, trying to make me feel bad by not admitting it? I don't know what you mean. The wine must have gone to your head. Try sobering it up before Chikako finishes her bath. And Satoru pulled the wine out of Suki's reach. We cats get limp and squishy when we have catnip. For humans, wine seems to do the trick. Satoru would occasionally drink alcohol at home. He'd down a few while watching one of those games with balls that humans like, baseball or soccer, and start feeling happy, and soon tumble sideways onto the floor. If I inadvertently passed near him, he'd grab him and hug him in his face, say, "Nah, nah, in a syrupy voice, and I couldn't stand it, so I tried to keep my distance. Plus, he stank of alcohol. And there were times when he drank away from the house and came back smelling of liquor, but was always in a good mood. I was used to be convinced that when humans drank, it always made them cheerful, like catnip for cats. I never encountered someone like Sugi, with all gloomy and moody when he drank. But when Chikako went to have a bath, he suddenly started pouting at Totoro, like almost cowering before him. Drinking isn't fun, then why do it? I was hanging off the top of the TV in the sitting room, eyeing the two men as they talked, until Satoru finally removed the bottle of the wine from the table. By the way, I became really fond of TV there. Ours at home was thin and flat like a board, but when there was more like a box. Very enticing for a cat. Plus, it was faintly warm and made my tummy feel toasty. Fantastic in the winter, I imagined. It's really old, Momo told me. In the past, TVs were oldest shape, apparently. Going from this perfect design to an impractical flat shape is, if you ask me, a step backwards, technology-wise. Momo told me that if you could tell how old a cat was, whether by not they knew these boxy TVs. In this house, Chikako gave priority making things comfortable for cats, and she did miss ideas of getting one of those flat TVs. A splendid decision, in my opinion. Why the glum look? If you're bored of it, then I'll have it back, Momo said to me. She was stretching out her long limbs on a nearby sofa, and she allowed me, the guest, to take her special seat on the top of the TV. I'm not that bored. I just... I classically at the word on Sugi. I thought they were friends, but it doesn't look that Sugi likes Satoru very much, Momo suggested. That can't be true, I said. Don't you think he wants him here? And yet he went out specifically yesterday to buy that wine. He said he'd like Satoru to try it. Why flare up at Satoru like that then? Why say things about Satoru's character as though he was upset? That he's such a good person. He likes him, but he also envies him. My master wants to be like your master. I don't get it. Satoru is Satoru and Suki is Suki. Exactly. But the master seems to feel that if he could be like Satoru, then Chico, Chico would love him more. Dear me, it sounds like it's a pretty big thing for him. Chikako used to really like your master, is what I gather. Momo had clarified. It was going way back, way before Momo was born, and when these humans were still young. She heard from a cat who lived them previously. What did Satoru think? Did he like Chikako? Too, if a woman who held onto an old boxy TV for the sake of a cat was Satoru's wife, that might be really wonderful, is what I was thinking. Well, not something we'd know though. No, it's just that when it comes to Chikako, the master seems to have a guilty conscience regarding Satoru, said Momo. Sounds like an awkward business to me. I mean, Chikako ended up choosing Sugi and became his wife, so what's the problem? Among cats, when female chooses a mate, it's a very clear-cut thing. Not among cats, but with all animals. The female judgment about love is absolute. If I hadn't experienced true love myself, and having been looked after Satoru since I was young, maybe it was a little too gentle to have won the heart of a female when I was young. If I had a bigger face and a sterner expression, I might have, like Yoshimin. He were a cat, he'd definitely be heading with the ladies. But it makes sense now. Oh, that mud of a dog is Suki's, isn't it? The dogs of the world aren't very level-headed things. The master says they jump and they ask, "How high?" So perhaps Suki's dog is trying to take the side of his gloomy master. With cats, though, the master can throw a tantrum and cats don't necessarily jump. Cats only always follow their own path. Tomorrow was still young and lacked subtlety. In the evening, they let the dog inside the house, but led him immediately into another room. He didn't come at us barking like he did when we first met, but since he had been told terribly rude to Satoru, he and I were on high alert. Well, well, you seem to have had a few already. Chikaku was out of the bath. Are you going to bed now? Chikaku asked, though pacifying a child, to which Sugi replied, Nope, shaking his head like a spoiled brat. If you and Satoru are staying up, then I will. Chikako and Satoru looked at each other with a smile. Their faces were glowing. Is a drunk really that endearing? To me, it just looks embarrassing. Crikey. I hope I don't look like that when I sniff a bit of catnip. After a while, Satoru said, I'm feeling sleepy now, so I'm off to bed. Come on. Satoru helped Suki to his feet, and perhaps he was heavier than he expected, or his body much more limp because began to stagger. Chikako got up to quickly prop up Suki. In this way, the two of them got Suki to bed. Not long after, Satoru moved away with his aunt. Suki started going out with Chikako. Both of them were aiming into again the same college, and they talked it over and decided on a university in Tokyo. Chikako was planning on help out with the orchard business in the future, so if she didn't want to go to college outside the prefecture, she would end up spending her whole life within the confines of the district she grew up in. It was an entirely natural, innocent desire for a young girl to want to spend some part of her life in a big city. When they both passed the university entrance exam, Chikako was going to live with relatives in Tokyo, and Sugi would stay in the dorm, a double room, and it was a big concern whether he would get on with his roommate. But the dorm had 2 points in his favor: low rent and convenient location. He and his roommate arranged to meet up before the entrance ceremony, and Sugi set off, with a map in hand, down the unfamiliar streets to locate his dorm. The winding back streets confused him, and he wandered in a circle for a while, but he finally arrived, not too much later than the scheduled time. He was filling out forms at the reception desk when it happened. Sugi! He didn't know anyone yet and turned to understand, and he saw who he was. He was stunned. Satoru! He said, his brain froze. It was great to meet an old friend like this in an unfamiliar place, but at the same time, the question of why Satoru was here, paired with an still guilty conscience, began to play on his mind. I heard from Chikako that she was applying to this college. I thought maybe you were too. I see I was right. You heard from her? You mean you guys after you moved away? Not at all. She wrote to me. That was back when high school students didn't have mobile phones. I gave you my new address, remember? And Chikako wrote me a letter. I never got a letter from you, though, Satoru said teasingly. Hey, but I did call you a few times. Well, I guess when friends grow up, they lose touch. It's the same with my pals from junior high. Though we talk a lot on the phone. But when I got that letter from Chikako, I thought, wow, girls are really conscious. They've written to each other a few times since. And in one of the letters, Satoru apparently read about which college Chikako was applying to. Chikako never told me you were applying here, Satoru. That makes sense, since I never told her. I reckoned if one of us didn't get in, it would feel kind of awkward. Now we understood. Suki realized there was nothing to it, but still he had his suspicions, and that was the problem. Since we're both here, why don't we ask them if we can share a room? True. My roommate hasn't appeared yet. If we arrange it now, it shouldn't be a problem. Satoru had been in the dorm for a week already, and his kind nature already meant he had a network of acquaintances, so they managed to swap roommates. Chicago was delighted that Satoru was attending the same college, but sulked at not being told. Why didn't you let me know? She asked. She had been just about to write a letter to him to let him know that she and Suki had both got into the same college. The first semester flew by, and before they knew it, the second semester started. Suki, I got one of the gifts from the second years. Satoru showed him cans of beer, an up-brand market that was still discounted. 20 was illegal drinking, but for college student, that was just an full official policy, and in dorm drinks were circulated even between underage students. They made sure, though, that things didn't get out of hand, and were careful to avoid the eagle-eyed dorm mother whenever there were alcohol around. Oh, then I'll catch some snacks to go with it. Dorm students often got food parcels from home, and if the students shared whatever they received, they could get some pretty nice things. Suki had received some juicy grapes, and, trading up, he managed to talk a student hailing from Hokkaido into letting him have some salmon fillets and sweets that were a specialty of the student's hometown. Satoru would get merry when he drank, and he wasn't much of a drinker. 2 cans of beer were all it took before his eyes grew bloodshot. And for some reason, the talk turned into an indoor romance. A freshman, quite a frivolous guy, had made repeated moves on an older girl in the dorm and kept getting shot down. The other guys found it funny, but he also tried to cheer him up. How many times have you been ejected? 11 so far. The informant, passed this on to Sugi and chuckled. It's so funny, he won't give in. He said that during the second semester he was going to hit the 20 mark. What for? Is he aiming to bring some kind of record for being rejected? He's lost sight of the goal. I know, but I kind of envy that sort of recklessness. Tsuru's red eyes sparkled. You know, in high school I sort of had a thing for Chikako. The one thing Sugi never hoped to hear. But since you were here, I reckoned it was still hopeless, and still, even having been rejected, I wish I at least had told her. I wish I'd at least told her. If he the had, history would have been different. Unable to keep it in, he was cracked. Please, don't ever tell Chikako. I wish I'd at least told her. History might still be different, even now. Please. Misery bowing his head, Suki thought, how shameful can I get? I know very well on the miserable I look, and I still go ahead and beg him. Satoru seemed touched by words, and his eyes widened a little, and just when Suki had asked for advice and shut him down. Don't worry about it, he smiled. You two probably have a stronger relationship than you think you do. And Suki was in the end successful in keeping Satoru quiet. Suki graduated from college, returned to his hometown, and after a few years married Chikako. Satoru came to the wedding. History wasn't going to be written now, they'd come too far for that. But still, sometimes Suki would get in a bit of canopy when he thought of Satoru. Punishment, he thought, for having suppressed his friend's words all those years ago. If he had taken Satoru's cat, it would be a thorn in his side that would torment him for the rest of his life. But still, Satoru was clearly troubled about what to do with his cat that had come to help, and since Sugi had won out with Chikako through unfair methods, he felt it was his duty to help. It might seem weird for have a petty and cowardly guy to do this so late in the day, Sugi thought, but I really like you, Satoru. You've done a much harder. You've had a much, much harder life than I have, yet you have always remained generous and kind. You blow me away. I've always wanted to be more like you, and if only I could be. The next morning, another meeting between the dog and me was arranged. After breakfast, Chikako left the dining room to fetch him. Be a good boy this time, Tora, Chikako cautioned him as he stood behind the fence. Suki, who looked worried, was pacing around the dining room. Satoru looked a little worried too, and the only ones who kept their cool were Momo and yours truly. Breakfast for me was a special tuna blend with a side of chicken breast, so I was feeling pleasantly full. Give it your best shot, you hound. The door to the room was swung open, and the dog planted himself in the door and was staring hard in my direction. He avoided Satoru's eyes. Too damn right. Yesterday, on several occasions, Sugi had scolded the dog, reminding that Satoru was his good friend and mustn't bark at him. That being the case, there was only one other he could turn his fire on. You want it, pal? Then I'm more than ready for you. The dog began to bark at me in such a frenzy he looked on the verge of losing it. Ignoring the cries of humans, I arched my back as high as I could go in my first stand at the end. You don't fool around, do you? Momo murmured. High praise indeed. The dog would not stop barking, and Satoru rushed over to hold me down so I wouldn't leap at the stupid dog. As long as you're here, the master and his wife will be thinking of Satoru. It's painful for my master if his wife remembers him. I don't need to hear that. If a house with a stupid hound like you in it, then I'm calling the whole thing off on my own. If it came to a fight, I was several leagues above this mutt. You may talk big, but I bet you've never had a life-death scrape. You've never been in a kind of fight over territory where if you lose, you have nothing to eat for days, have you, you spoiled high and mighty hound? I gave him an earful of kind of spile I perfected over the years of numerous scenes of carnage. This kind of rough language like I can't subject you polite ladies and gentlemen. Momo, surveying all this with total disinterest, perched atop her TV, smiled. Pardon me, I told her. My one regret is besmirching the ears of a refined lady like yourself with such lady. Go home, damn you. The hound was close to tears, still barking his head off. The piddly 3-year-old dog who always wore a collar thinks he's gonna beat me? Not in 100 years, my friend. Momo's lives twice as long as me, and I've lived twice as long as you, pal. I won't allow someone in this house who reminds the master and his wife of Satoru. Besides, shut it! Say any more and I'll make you regret it. I had admired the dog, though. He still wouldn't shut up. He really was ruined up. And besides, your remarks, he's like he's not gonna make it. I told you to shut it. Nana! Satoru yelled at me. I escaped from his grip and swiped the dog with my claws. Ruff! The dog screamed, letting out, and 3 neat rows of wounds now ran down his bristled muzzle, and 3 lines of blood were faintly oozing out. But Tomorrow still hadn't put his tail between his legs. Several times he looked as if he was going to lower it at least, forced it up again. Finally, stop it, Nana! You'll hurt him! The fight was already won, and I meekly let Satoru pick me up. I'm so sorry. Satoru apologized over and over to Tomorrow and to Suki and Chikako. It's okay. I just glad that Nana didn't get bitten. Chikako, turning pale, let out a sigh. Suki let Tomorrow a good rap on the head with his fist. It really happened, man. He would have died, you know. For the first time, Tormaru let his tail sag between his legs and glared at me regretfully. Okay, I understand. I won't count that among my victories. I'm sorry. I really appreciate you said you'd look at Nana, but I'm gonna take him back home. So True said quite sad about this. It wouldn't be good for tomorrow either to have a cat he doesn't get on with. Satoru fetched a basket, and I stepped in obediently and glanced at Tomorrow. Thank you, Tomorrow. Tomorrow looked a bit dubious, and I came here on a trip with Satoru not to be left behind here in this house. I was trying to come up with a plan so we could go home together. Thanks to you, it's all out smoothly. Tomorrow lowered his eyes and tilted his head, and Satoru and I headed towards the silver van. They brought Tomorrow out on a lead to see us off. Suki tight hold on him, wrapping it a few times around his hand. Momo came out and ordered her to say goodbye. It's been a long time since I've seen a fight as definite as that, she said, paying me a compliment. I'm so sorry it turned out this way. I'm just glad Nana didn't get hurt. Really did hope to look after him. Suki and Chikako apologized one after another, but that only made Satoru uncomfortable, which is understandable after seeing how the only one who actually hurt was, in the end, moi. As usual, before Satoru got into the van, his old friend seemed to find it painful to say goodbye, even after Satoru was behind the wheel. Chikako kept saying she had forgotten to give him this or that, and did one present after another. Her own homegrown herbs, some fruit, and some more fruit. We better have got going. Oh, by the way, Satoru said, called an open window. When I was in high school, I really liked you, Chicago. Did you know that? He said he was pretty blasé. Sugi's face stiffened, and Chicago said, What? And then she blinked like a pigeon had been shot like a pea shooter and gave a little laugh. That was so long ago. Yeah. Why bring it up now? Yeah, I guess you're right. And but two of them chuckled. Sugi stood there astonished and gave a late part of the party laugh. He might have been laughing, but he looked like he was almost ready to cry. Then started moving, and there was a shout. Tomorrow! Tomorrow wrenched hard, struggling to break free of the lad. Hey, cat! Tomorrow, you can stay. The master was laughing and misuse in Satoru. It's okay for you to stay, you idiot. I told you I had no intention of being left here from the very start. Tora, can't you at least behave when you're saying goodbye? Satoru tugged angrily at the lead. Don't be cross with him. He's trying to stop me from leaving. But what's with Tora breaking off his head earlier? Suki thought while he was saying. Is he upset? Asked Satoru, looking the veer in receding figures. His bark sounds different from here before. That's why I like you, Satoru. You're perceptive about things like that. The silver van gave a little beep of its horns before turning the corner, sending dust into the air and leaving the bed and breakfast far behind. It would have been perfect if they could have just looked after you. There you go again, Satoru. That's just our grapes. Mount Fuji now is well behind us. If you intend to come and fetch me back one day, you shouldn't leave me there in the first place. I was standing on my hind legs and pawing at the top of the back seat to see out the rear window. But Satoru laughed. The sea might have not been your cup of tea, but you do seem to have taken a liking to Mount Fuji. 'Cause Mount Fuji doesn't make that belly-shaking roar, and doesn't have that perpetual motion that will swallow me up. I hope we can see it again together. Yeah, let's do that someday. And let's visit Sugi and Chikako again. We had such a nice view of Mount Fuji from our bedroom. And also, you liked that old picture to TV too, didn't you? Yes, that's the ticket. That box-shaped TV was perfect. Just the right size to lie down, all toasty and warm. Say, Satoru, what if we were to get a box-shaped TV like that? Sorry, that ours is the thin type. They don't sell tube TVs anymore. Ah, such a pity. But that's okay. I can think of it as a special attraction when we visit the Sugis again next time. Oh, and one other thing. The next time we visit, I bet you tomorrow will wag his tail at us. In the evening, a reservation came in at the bed and breakfast for that night. May- Maybe we should keep tomorrow tied up. True. He might have still been worked up because of his fight with Nana. Suki took Tomorrow outside and chained him to the kennel. Then he turned to Chikako, who had followed him. About what Satoru had said a little while ago. What? Are you bothered by that? Ouch. That hit home. No, it's not that, Suki stammered. I just wondered how you would have been taken if Satoru had told you he liked you when we were still in high school. Who knows? Chikako said, shrugging. Unless we could go back in time, I don't know how I would have reacted. That was a spot-on answer, which he had, had no reply to. It might have been nice, though, to be a young girl wavering between the affections of two boys. Wavering? This took him by surprise, and he couldn't help but ask her what she meant. Of course I would have wavered, Chikako laughed. If I had two boys liking me at the same time, then that would definitely been have piqued my interest. Sugi was felt like was weeping, but managed to control himself. I don't know which of us two she would have chosen, he thought, but at least I was included in that lineup. And he felt his sense of inferiority and jealousy diminish a little. The next time I see Satoru, I can be a much better friend. Now that is a happy thought.